All right, here we are again, week 2, and that was a little nervous dance prior to starting the workout. Don't we all get that way? Just a tiny bit of nerves right before the workout. It's what makes it fun. It's why we keep on coming back. So this is 24.2, as many rounds and reps as possible in 20 minutes of a 300-meter row, 10 deadlifts, 50 double unders. The weight for women is 125 pounds. The weight for men is 185 pounds. So what I will say is, as a woman watching the open announcement, I didn't have a great feel for where I should be finishing and what I should be getting in this workout, because the row is the same for the women and the men. Ultimately, that doesn't really matter. It's hard to compare your score against the opposite gender because you know, are going to row differently. Men tend to be taller and heavier, and that's going to pay off big time on the rower. So yeah, it's hard to compare, but ultimately you're competing against the same gender in the open, so it doesn't really matter. What I will say is, when you get on that rower, start out slower than you actually think you need to. So when I started pulling initially, I was pulling like a 2-minute pace, and I'm like, nope, that's the adrenaline. Stop that. So I tried to slow it down. So here we are on the deadlifts, 10 deadlifts. I ended up going unbroken for all of these, and watching them back, definitely probably could have moved a little bit faster, but I was trying to make sure I hit full extension more than I was trying to make sure I was going super fast at my deadlifts. And now onto the double unders, my biggest concern, and we mess up on the second rep. We mess up on the second rep. So that is what it was. And I said at the beginning of this, I was most concerned about the double unders. And for me, this is a double under workout. So that's a lot of how I chose to pace this workout. And I'll explain more of that as we go. Someone told me to break up the double unders before I mess up the double unders. That is good advice, I think, but I don't really do that. I just usually, more of the time than not, stop because I trip. But there was a couple times I did stop to rest. Back to the rower for round 2. That first round was about 2.5 minutes. So decent pace for me. And my thought was, get onto that rower as soon as you can, because that's where you gotta rest. I think for a lot of us, that's where the rest is. If you are an elite athlete, it's the opposite. That's where you have to push and make up the difference. But I feel for people like me who are concerned about the double unders, the best thing you can do is slow down on the row and get that heart rate under control. So I was holding about a 2:15 pace on the rower. So that was something I made note of while I was doing this. 2:15 to the low 2:20s is probably what I was at the end. Not a fast row by any means, but watching the announcement, watching Colton and Justin do this workout, it seemed like the row pace was fairly similar at the end to what it was at the beginning, but a couple seconds slower. So you want to do a pace that you're going to be able to hold for a 20-minute workout. So when I first got on that rower initially, like I said, I was pulling like a 2-minute pace. No, take a breath. You need to take a breath. You're going to need to rest somewhere over the 20 minutes. And unless you're a very proficient double underer where that is the rest, the row is a good place to rest because you can rest and move. So again, knocking out these deadlifts. 125 for me is not a super heavy weight. I'm not a strong athlete by any means, but 125 is something that I can certainly move. And I just tried to go unbroken with it the whole workout, and I was successful at that. So getting into my double unders, I always do 1 or 2 singles to start. It's just a habit, and you don't change your habits for the open. So if you do your double unders in a certain way, if you usually do 1 or 2 singles before you start your doubles, you should do that in this workout. Is it a waste of a couple seconds? Sure. But this is not the time to change any of your approaches. However you usually move is the way you're going to want to continue moving for this open workout. It's just your smartest bet. And remember that like slow is smooth and smooth is fast. That was another way I was trying to approach this workout. Remembering to take it slow. 20 minutes is a long time. You can come out with the adrenaline and really try to hit it hard. But if you do that, you may end up screwing yourself in the long run because you're just going to be so fatigued near the end of this workout that you're not picking up the barbell right away, that you're not doing the double unders well. So you want to keep that heart rate as under control as possible. I was checking my watch periodically. I had a heart rate monitor around my chest, and I would say my heart rate was in about the 160s for a lot of this. And that may seem low compared to the last workout, and it was. I think my heart rate peaked at 180, or 188, but for a lot of the workout I was in that 160 range. And that's a range that I can sort of maintain and feel fairly calm at. 180 is not. So you want to be somewhere that you feel like you're in control, because double unders are a movement that you do have to be to some degree in control of your heart rate and yourself to do well. At least for me, because they're not a super proficient movement. When you were watching the open, they looked like the rest. That is true for some people. It wasn't true for me, and it's still not true for me. So back to these deadlifts, trying to make sure that every rep counts. I don't particularly like deadlifts, so I just wanted to make sure that I was not getting any no reps, because why do any more than I have to? And that's a good approach just in general to the open. Why do any more work than you have to? A lot of this is just being proficient, moving through things, saving yourself transition times. So try to make your movements clean so that you don't have to do any extra that you don't want to do. You don't want to have to repeat. You don't want to get a no rep. So that was a lot of my focus during this. Although there's going to be some no reps. I mean, they definitely missed a couple of these double unders. As you can see right there, me hunched over, just trying to take a breath. But I tried to remind myself, even when I felt fatigued on the double unders, just give yourself enough time that you can do some. You don't need to be completely recovered. After this is the row, and that is where I need to make my recovery, the row. Because standing here looking at the rope, I'm accomplishing nothing. Rowing slower, you're still rowing. You're still moving. So it's better to row slower. Those were some out of control double unders at the end there. I was just trying to finish them so I could get back to the rower and rest. But that's it. You want to get back to the rower. And if you are a more average athlete like me, some people say that I shouldn't consider myself average because I make it to quarterfinals most years. That is true, but I'm not an elite athlete by any means. So if you are not an elite double under or elite in general, I think your best place to rest is getting on this rower, because you're going to move while still catching your breath. You don't want to be standing still and catching your breath because you're not accomplishing anything. I've seen some complaints online after these first two workouts have been announced about, I guess, the lack of complexity and the lack of heavy barbells in the open. I understand that for some athletes that may be disappointing. One, we haven't seen all three, or possibly four, depending on how many scores there are on the last workout. We haven't seen all the tests, period. We know that. There's at least one more test. So we really can't make a full assessment until we see the whole thing. That's the truth. So let's not jump to conclusions, but you need to be fairly fit to get through either of these workouts. Yes, I understand for the elites, there's a lot less place to separate yourself in these workouts, but they're just trying to make top 25%. The Open used to qualify people directly for regionals. That's not what we do anymore. There was a time when the Open qualified people for the games. Again, that's not what we do anymore. So this is just supposed to be workouts that can get the elites into the top 25%. I don't see why many of the elites would have any problem with that. Maybe it's not the most exciting workout for these people, but it's just part of their training at this point. Nobody that's elite is peaking for the Open. People that are peaking for the Open are the people who are barely quarterfinals athletes. Those are the people that need a peak. Everyone else is peaking for quarterfinals or semifinals or the games. So just, take the workout for what it is. It's a good sweat. And just, we don't have any control over what the Open workouts are. So take it for the test that it is. And if you think it's too easy, smash it. That's my advice. If it's too easy for you, just get an elite score. It's definitely not too easy for me. As you can see, I put the jump rope down, rest my arms for a second, so I can hopefully get back up and do some more jumping. There has been a lot of jumping and hinging in the Open so far. I will say that. Maybe a little bit more than we needed. But, I don't know what the last test is. Probably less jumping and hinging would be my guess. But we'll do predictions for the next workout next week. We are still on this one. And I was at this point realizing I can probably get 7 rounds if I stay on pace. So that was my goal in my head at this point. But I didn't want to get ahead of myself because sometimes in these workouts, your brain moves faster than your body can. And you're just thinking about the next thing. You don't want to do that. You want to focus on what you're doing, but also when you're on this rower, catching your breath, keeping a controlled pace, having a pace in mind and continuously hitting that pace, as opposed to panicking, going faster, or on the other end of the spectrum, just really slowing down because you're starting to feel gassed or 12 minutes into the workout. You don't want to do that either. You want to pick a pace that you're going to be able to maintain throughout the workout. That's what we saw the elite people do. I think that is also a good approach for us more average athletes. The difference is our pace will also be more average. I didn't end up breaking up the deadlifts. I will say you could break up the deadlifts if you think you need to do that. I didn't want to waste time there because I knew I was going to be wasting a little bit of time on those double unders. So I didn't do that. This is a fairly lightweight. I definitely went with more of a hinge approach versus using more of a squat in the deadlift. I don't like squatting. Some people, these videos tend to get a lot of views, so some people might be new here. But if you're not new, I don't like squatting. If you are new, yeah, I don't like squatting. So if I can avoid doing that and just hinge, that's the name of the game. It's only been about an hour and a half since I finished this workout, and I'm not really feeling it. And it's interesting because although your heart rate is fairly high, like I said, 160s, 170s, peaked at 188, you're not dying like I was dying in 24.1. So it's a little bit of a different feel for an open workout. But I want to remind people again, it is 20 minutes of this. 20 minutes is a lot of minutes. So you don't want to be redlining in minute 5. If you're redlining in minute 5, you're not going to be in a good place when you're coming up on minute 14 like I am here. So you're going to want to feel a little bit less like you're going at an aggressive pace than you were in the previous workout. You're going to want to feel a little bit more controlled and like you're regulating your heart rate. That's a weird approach for most open workouts, but that's what's going to work best for you based on my experience in this workout. Now, if you are someone who just happens to be, whether or not you consider yourself elite, but you just happen to be very proficient at double unders and decent at deadlifting, then maybe your approach is a little bit different. Maybe you go a little bit harder because you know that even with a high heart rate, you can still do those double unders. That's what the elite athletes are doing. They got to push this row. They got to push everything because they're just trying to go as fast as possible. But if either the deadlift or the double under is a limiter for you, then you have to rest on that row, recover. Even if you feel like you can go a little bit harder. There was moments on this row where I'm like, dang, should I just be yanking this thing harder? Should I be trying to push this closer to a 2-minute pace? But the truth is, when I got off, I wanted to be able to go right to that bar. I didn't want to be looking at the bar. I didn't want to be taking really long rests before my double unders. So I'm like, even if you feel like you're going a little slower than you want to on this row, it may make sense. Now, this is also still very early, so I haven't seen other people's scores. I don't know if my score is going to be way off because I didn't push the row. But I will say that I felt like I moved for most of the workout. And I feel like that's a good approach. Now, also on the rower, you just have to sit on the rower until you hit 300. So when I pulled my last rep, it was usually around, I guess, like 290. And then as I just brought it back in, it got to that 300. I was never off before the 300, but you don't have to pull all the way until you see 300. Save yourself a second, give yourself a second to take a breath as you bring that the handles back in. You don't need to be pulling all the way past. You don't need to pull until 320 or anything, or 330. That's a waste of your time. Just got to be sitting on that rower. That's what the rules say. You just got to be sitting on that rower when it hits 300. So that's the approach I took. I was happy. I was still doing all right at these double unders. Sometimes for me, I get to this point, my double unders, where I can't feel my rope anymore. If you've never experienced it, that might not make a whole lot of sense to you. But I've had these experiences where it feels like I can't feel the rope in space. Like I just can't feel where it is. And I never really got to that point, so I was pretty happy with that. Although here I am just bending over looking tired. And I mean, I am almost 17 minutes into this workout. But I knew if I got back on the rower by like the 17-minute mark, I would have a good chance of finishing another round. And that would be 7 rounds for me. So I was like, let's do this thing. I don't really count a whole ton when I have a judge. I just kind of trust the judge. I don't want to ever argue with my judge. So whatever the reps is they say I'm hitting, that's the reps I'm hitting. Even if I counted something different. So I don't even really count. But I do hear some people that are like, oh, I always count. But if you're getting different numbers, like, you don't want to argue with your judge. That's a waste of your time. So just choose a judge that you trust to count the double unders, because double unders are a difficult thing to count. And then you just have to go based on what they say. So just a thing to think about when you think about how you want to approach this mentally. Your judge is the person who makes the call. So you can count if that helps you, but if you're going to get a totally different number than your judge is going to get, and that's going to upset you, maybe you just got to leave it up to the judge and let them do their thing. It doesn't really upset me. I just try to go dumb during these workouts and just move. Keep my body moving and get it done. That's what I try to do always. So that's what I'm doing here. Just moving, grinding through. We've got 2 minutes left. So I am trying to, like, this was a weird place. I'm like, I want to row a little bit harder. But if I row so hard that my heart rate's so high that I mess up these double unders, what would have been the point of rowing that hard? So I looked at the clock and knew that I had a good chance of finishing this round. And I just tried to, get right to my bar. I didn't run to it, but walk to it and then just start pulling. And not try to get, too in my head about anything. I did try to move a little bit faster on these deadlifts because I'm like, this is it. This is all you have left. Just finish this. Just move quickly. Usually I don't move super quickly in the in the deadlifts. I feel like I kind of moved slower. I could have moved faster on all of those, but it is what it is. You just kind of got to do it the way you usually do it. That's my advice with everything. I usually do 2 singles before I do doubles. Just stuck with that. Stuck with what I'm used to. Looking at the clock here, I was panicking a little bit because you mess up and you're like, damn, do I have enough time to finish this? But you just got to trust yourself, trust your gut, keep moving. Just keep moving. Especially at this point, even if you need a rest and you mess up like I did, you just got to get back at it because you don't have a lot of time left and you don't want to regret not picking it up and going again. So kept moving, hoping to get back to that rower, messing up again, but I'm like, I'm almost there. Just got to keep going, not let it discourage you. Move through the workout, get back to that rower. See, ran to that rower. I'm not going to lock my feet in. That's my advice here too. You don't have a lot of time. I had like 12 seconds. Don't lock your feet in. This clock, again, is a little bit off compared to the clock I'm actually using. But at the end of this, I do like a half pull because I heard the clock expire, and I didn't want to like cheat by pulling all the way. And I ended up getting 59 meters. So 1 meter, like a centimeter of a pull away from getting 6 reps on the rower. So I got 7 rounds plus 5 reps. And I did look pretty tired after, but I was definitely back up and feeling better after this workout than I was compared to 24.1. Let me know your thoughts about the workout in the comments below. Could I have gotten 1 more rep on this workout? Probably. If I redid it, I could probably get at least 1 more rep because I finished on the rower with 59 meters. I didn't want to pull too hard because I feel like I would have been pulling past the time, the end of the time. And one thing I really focus on just in general, like in my life as a human, but also here in the gym, is virtuosity. And I don't want to cheat. That is one of my biggest focuses. And with all of you watching, not that I need incentive not to cheat, but it's someone sort of keeping an eye on you. And it makes you be even more cognizant of doing things correctly, because someone will definitely see what people would be willing to do behind closed doors. We've seen this in general in life. What people are willing to do behind closed doors is not always what they would be willing to do in public. And me, I try to keep those things the same. So I felt like pulling extra hard there and still pulling past the time would have been cheating. So I don't like to cheat. But overall, I am pretty happy. I was like in that workout, and you're going hard, but like you can't go too hard. You don't want a red line. 20 minutes is a long time. And if you get stuck on that rope where like you just can't feel it anymore and you can't do another rep, you're gonna be pissed. So I was really focusing on not doing that so that I could make sure I could just keep moving the entire time. Was I 100% happy with my double unders? No. Could they have been worse? Yes, they could have been much worse. So we're just gonna call it, I think, a win. I'm like 7 is good. Getting into the round of 8, I think, is decent. But I have no idea. Watching 2 men do the open workout makes it very difficult as a woman to know how you're gonna do. Anyway, the rest of my thoughts you'll hear in the voiceover. I appreciate you all for watching. I will see you in the next one. I'm hoping to get this up super early. Obviously, if you're seeing this, it's up, but next week might be a little bit later because I'm starting a new job and I'll be there that day. So I don't know what time I'm gonna get to do the workout, but I will try to do it as soon as possible. Like always, make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed here. Lots of CrossFit content, even when we're not in the open times. And like this video, leave a comment, let me know how you're feeling. Let me know your thoughts on the workout. All right, see you later.